Let's have a look at Venus. So I just wanted to just show you a couple of things, nothing too in depth. I just wanted to show you a couple of tools that astrologers use in terms of assessing compatibility. So far we've spoken about Venus, which sign she's in, whether she's in a strong sign, what house she might be in, whether she's, near the rulers or not, near the angles, whether she has hard aspects or soft aspects, and what this might mean in terms of how we fall in love and the partners that we attract. Now, what I'm introducing, and like I said, I'm not going to go in depth, but what I'm introducing is the idea of how astrologers might see it. So, for instance, this is one person's chart, and then we've got another person's chart. Now, for the sake of honesty, I'm going to actually say they are not an actual couple and never have been a couple. They have met, however, and I selected both of their charts because I think in another lifetime they may well have met and become partners, because they've got a lot of little areas like pockets of interest. And what first of all brought this to my attention was I was looking at this particular chart, and there's a lot of energy here at 21 to 23 degrees in the sign of Capricorn, including the Venus. And Venus is obviously really important in terms of love. And then this chart here also has Venus in the sign of Capricorn. It's at 6 degrees, but look at this ascendant at 18 and a half. It's at 19 degrees in the sign of Capricorn. So they both have a sensitivity around 19 to 20, like this is really close to 21 degrees and 23 degrees. In astrology, we are looking for connections between people. In particular, in a love connection, we would be looking for a connection between Venus and possibly the ascendant, which is one of the most, I think it's the most important point of a birth chart personally. We might be looking for a connection between Venus and somebody else's sun, or for instance, somebody's moon and Venus. And we're always looking for connections. And so I just thought it was an interesting one to have a look at. Also, I know that this person here has got their north node in the sign of Pisces, and Mars, which is a sexual planet, in the sign of Pisces. And then we've got this moon and Chiron conjunction in the sign of Pisces. So I was thinking, oh, Capricorn and Pisces, these two, let's have a look at these two as a potential. So this is how we would look at simple attraction. And we've got a couple of tools that we use. Now, one of those tools is known as synastry, which sounds sinister, but it is the comparison between one person's chart and another. And so you'll see all of these planets in blue represent the lady's chart, and all the planets in red around the outside represent the male's chart. It doesn't have to be male and female, by the way, but, I'm just being authentic about these two. And what you'll see here when you compare the charts is that the Venus of his chart is right in a conjunction on the ascendant of her chart. His sun is right on the ascendant, which is another indication of an attraction. And Mercury is also in a conjunction with the ascendant. Down here, we've also got the moon connected to Mars, the sexual planet. And yeah, just those are quite a good indicator of a natural rapport that would come up, but in particular one that would have a sexual component and possibly a romantic component. Now, when you're looking at the charts of lovers, the more connections you have, the better. And you start to interpret the meaning of one planet against the other. And you might look at where that planet shows up in the other person's chart. So for instance, in her chart, the Mars sexual element shows up in her second house, which can show that there is something very attractive about him in terms of how he earns money and how she perceives him. So, you start to build up this case of how they are compared to each other. So it's looking at their energy systems and how they compare to each other. So that's one way. The other way is to look at a composite chart. And to be fair, I would use two. I would use the composite chart and the synastry chart to see the potentials, because the composite chart is different. So with the composite chart, you look for the midpoint between two of the same planets. So the midpoint between his sun in Capricorn and her sun in Sagittarius is 10 degrees in the sign of Capricorn. The midpoint between his Venus and her Venus is 14 degrees. And so the whole chart is built out of their midpoints. It's like the average of their charts. It's like him plus her, and I guess it's like a Venn diagram. It's like the combination, and it's the thing that exists between them. And in this little spot between them, it describes the potential of the relationship. So this chart is about the potential relationship between them, expressed between his personality and her personality. And then the other one is one person's potentials against another's, and it shows where they have these little merging spots, showing where they have little pockets of interest that seem to work together. Now, looking at this composite chart, you can see there's this really tight T-square, which creates some really big challenges within the relationship. So even if they got on, and even if there was a sexual attraction, I mean, this actually would raise a lot of tension between them, and it could be quite sexual. I mean, there would be no lack of energy between them, and yet it looks like they're dynamically working against each other at times, and probably getting quite offended by each other. But I just wanted to show you these two different methods that astrologers can use to analyze the potential of a relationship. And they're both quite different, but both really, really important. So one is to compare partners and one is to merge partners.